転生
Greetings and salutations my fellow raiders, and welcome to my Siege of Orgrimmar raiding guide for the first boss, Immerseus. Immerseus is best encountered with 2 tanks, 2 to 3 healers and a good mixed up DPS setup, where hybrid classes are just a tiny bit more beneficial to your setup. Try to spread your damage dealers up widely in the room, but keep in mind that a healer must have them in range at all times. The tank should have their own designated pizza slice platform on which the active tank stands on and no one else. That is because of the first and only tank mechanic in that fight called Corrosive Blast, which usually deals around 600k magic damage to the active tank and applies a debuff which requires your tanks to perform a tank swap. And for that ability it is generally advised that your tank uses a small defensive cooldown to minimize the incoming damage. The debuff from Corrosive Blast requires a tank swap because if the boss uses Corrosive Blast on the same target again, it would do 3 times as much damage, meaning about 1.8 million unmitigated magic damage, which of course hurts. So just let your secondary tank taunt the boss off and let the tank swap their platforms too, because the Corrosive Blast is actually a cone AoE hitting the entire platform the active tank stands on, which is why the active tank has to stand alone on his platform. The next major ability the boss uses is called Charbolt, which he uses frequently about every 10 seconds on all players of the entire raid, dealing some minor damage and forming a little char pool under their feet, as you can see here, requiring all players to move out of them, or else they would get frequently damaged while standing in them. About every 35 seconds the boss will use his swirl ability, where he starts to pump a lot of water into one direction and turn slowly from that direction around himself in a 90-degree angle clockwise and deal damage to anyone in front of him doing his cast. I would advise you, if you are a ranged DPS or a healer, to get as fast as possible to the outer walls behind you, since even when he faces you there, his water won't reach that far. For any melee DPS, try to use one of your personal damage reducing cooldowns to minimize the damage you will take. Every time you reduce his life pool to 0, the boss will split and burst into a lot of sharp puddles and contaminated puddles. That is the reoccurring second phase of the fight. In that phase, you will have to spread out even more and try to cover as much of the room as possible with your raid. As I already mentioned, there are 2 kinds of puddles you will encounter here. You will have to deal with sharp puddles if you are a damage dealer, or contaminated puddles if you are a healer. Or, if you are a hybrid class that can heal, you can actually deal with both types. The sharp puddles are the dark ones and the contaminated puddles are the blue ones. You will have to kill as much sharp puddles and heal as much contaminated puddles to full health up as you can during that phase. If you either kill or heal one puddle back up and are close to the puddle when it was killed or healed to full, you receive a helpful buff, either to deal more damage or do more healing, which will help you to deal with more puddles faster. Whenever a puddle reaches the middle of the room, your whole raid will take some damage. If the puddle was purified, meaning if it got killed if it was a sharp puddle, or fully healed if it was a contaminated puddle, the damage from each puddle reaching the pool will be minimal. But for each puddle reaching the center which hasn't been purified, your whole raid will take about 70,000 damage. So be prepared to use a healing cooldown if you see a lot of unpurified puddles that are about to reach the pool. You will have to repeat phase 1 and phase 2 till you have fully purified Immerseus. As you may have noticed, he started with 100 corruption, which is indicated beneath his health pool, and you purify him for 1 every time you have dealt with a puddle. But the more you purify him, with the less HP he will come back, which will result in a drastically shorter phase 1 and On a side note, the more he gets purified, the less sharp puddles will spawn in phase 2 and more contaminated puddles, meaning a lot more work for your healers and hybrid classes. If you'd like to see any of my other boss guides for the current rating tier, please check out my channel's playlist or click on the annotation on screen to view the guide for the following boss. And if you liked that guide or found it to be helpful, please leave a like or subscribe to my channel for more guide videos or other nonsense. And if you got any questions, please leave them in the comment box below. My name has been ScepticalPanda, thanks for watching and happy raiding!